Hi, good afternoon. Welcome back. We're glad you stayed for our discussion and didn't run to the conference rooms. Nice to see you. My name is JAROSLAV and I will be leading you through this debate. I have 4 guests here today. Everyone is from a little bit of a different area, so I guess it will be very interesting. Today we will talk about sustainability and technology, because not only companies but our whole society, I think, is getting back on its feet after the pandemic, and we see that we are trying to build back better, and we are trying to build back a little more sustainable and in a different way that we functioned before. And sustainable development has become a topic not only in society in itself, but also in technology and in every aspect of it. So today we will look at how technology and sustainability are connected and what are some of the challenges and opportunities that we can see in them. So I welcome here on my left LAETITIA CAILLETEAU. Is it right?
Yeah, that's
the managing director for Accenture. Hi.
Thank you for having me.
BARBORA BUHNOVA, who is an associate professor and vice dean at Masaryk University. Good afternoon. Also, Richard VOROS, the technology senior manager at Accenture Bratislava. Good afternoon.
Hello.
And JAROSLAV VOJCIK, the head of digital channels and CRM development in the VUB Banka.
Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I was thinking if in English you are VUB Bank or VUB Banka.
I think it's VUB.
VUB, okay, so we will say it that way. Let's start with Richard, maybe from a little bit of a general perspective. We see that this strong emphasis on being sustainable is really getting stronger in these last years or bigger. What are some of the main reasons that sustainability is also becoming more important in technology? What do you see as the main reasons for that?
The topic of sustainability is very complex as such. It's not just the CO2 footprint, which most people think of when you say sustainability. And the companies are starting to realize it, or many of them already realized it many years ago. And the pressure comes from multiple kind of channels. One of the channels are the customers, which expect sustainable products. That's one part. Also employees are expecting to work, or they want to work for a sustainable company. So when they're choosing their employer, they're looking at the sustainability of the company they want to work for. But also other influences like government and or even banks. They are looking at the sustainability indexes when they are lending money, so they may adjust the rate at which they lend the money. And the fourth one is the investors, which are also looking to invest into sustainable companies. So the pressure is increasing, and the companies are realizing that. So they are starting to look. Some of them already did some years ago.
And how do you see it in Accenture, in your company? Is there a willingness to go forward, or is it also something that they had to start thinking about, or is it a trend that has been for now, or maybe been for many years?
I'm with Accenture for almost 18 years, and since I started, I can see many topics of sustainability being implemented. Like, it's not something we started doing yesterday, right? And it's from the inclusion and diversity topics. It's from the trash bins in the offices, where we separate the waste, or what kind of electricity we procure for the offices. We are procuring only green energy. That's one part, but also I'm seeing like the push from the customers. Like I asked just recently my customer. I was in their office and I asked them, "What are you doing in sustainability?" And they started laughing and said, "We are planting trees," which is kind of nice, but they want to do it, but they just don't know how. And I think, and I see it within Accenture, that we are enabling ourselves to do sustainability so we can enable our customers. So we learn how to do it, so we can advise them, we can show them how we do it, and the customers have questions. So after the answer with the trees, they ask like, but what can we do? And this starts a very nice conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, trees are not enough today. And we see also, because all this trying to be more sustainable is part of our bigger ESG concepts, and we can look at that as well, but we see that customers prefer companies that have a higher ESG score. Jaroslav, if you could maybe explain how does this fall into the ESG concept, what does it mean, and how do you see it in the banking sector?
I think it's, as you mentioned, that it's not only about CO2 footprint and environment, but for bank, it's multiple scenarios. Like, for example, the next generation, which is now finalizing the schools and actually is now in education or entering the market, they strongly prefer to work for companies who care about the environment. And also they care much more than us or the older generations before us. So it's really important for companies from multiple angles. One, from the employees, then also from the really the footprint and the ratings for the investors, because really they also choose to invest, but it's also for us that are really the social part of it, and how we take care about the people in the companies, how we include them, how we really care about the well-being, that it should be work-life balance. It's not only the work, so it's really important. And the last one, you didn't mention it, but the J is for also the government, and we really have to make sure, and VUB and also Intesa is very active in it, to create better environment for companies to invest into green energy. Because, for example, in Slovakia, if we would like to put solar panels on the roof today in the region of Bratislava, it's impossible, because we reached the quota for the new solar power electric plants. So even if VUB wants to add the solar panels on our roof, we are not able to, because we are reaching the limits. So really it's an important part, and we are playing the role, and our CEO is really active in it, that also lobbying in the government that we make the life simpler and we enable these companies to do the innovation in a green era. And the last part which you also tackled is the lending. And since Intesa wants to be a leader in the really ESG segment, we are starting to assess the portfolios what we have, like to whom we lend the money, and we are starting to ask the questions which we did not ask before, like what are you going to do with it, what is the ecological footprint, and we are trying to rank it, because it will be, we believe, the important part of also the strategies. Not only talk about it, but also really actively discuss and choose who to lend.
Is it even possible to assess something like that while lending the money? Yeah? You have a system.
We have a system, and the system is incredibly complex. Right now, the initial load was 700 parameters. So now we are discussing, okay, what are the important ones? Because if you should collect 700 parameters about every customer, it will be a little bit difficult.
Like the process is already quite difficult now to get a loan.
Yes, but it's also simple one. You know, if you are funding the new oil rig or the coal factory, so it's clear, straightforward. But sometimes it's not visible to what you invest, and so we have to go a little bit deeper in this area.
Thank you. You talked about employees. With Barbora, we were talking before these discussions about students, that students are also kind of part of the push towards sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Masaryk University. It's the second largest university in the Czech Republic. And I also sit on the board of the university concerned with sustainability. And it's really nice to see that push from the outside also towards universities to actually think more sustainably. And one push is the potential students, so kids who are now like in the 17, 18 years old, and are choosing an institution that they will actually become part of, which is a very strong thing in the life of a person, right? That like university you graduated, it should be something you want to be proud of, right? Like this is that alma mater, this is that, you know, university I've graduated and I stand for. So they really considered how sustainable that organization is and how it stands for sustainability, how it presents itself.
Okay, and how does it apply into the studies? Do you see also like a switch in what kind of things you are focusing on during the studies or during your research as researchers at university, or how does it really manifest into what the university is doing?
Yeah, so basically it's coming from the rectorate central place and then propagates to the faculties. And each faculty is trying to contribute differently. So there are faculties that really have the whole department on environmental studies, and this is really growing. There are some faculties like us, like computer science, who are trying to bring technology that facilitates sustainability. Because when you think about it, sustainability is about being really efficient in using scarce resources. That's what you want to do, right? You want to be fine with very limited resources. And technology is exactly that. Like, technology can help you how to be very efficient, how to plan, how to optimize, so that with limited resources you can still actually achieve your goals. So that's how our faculty is trying to contribute. We work with like energy distribution companies on different demand response systems that need some optimization and some smart solutions. But every faculty is contributing very differently.
Thank you. I would like to also ask you guys if you have some questions. If you want to ask something, you can use Slido at slido.com and use the hashtag OpenSlava. So don't hesitate to pose your questions. I will ask them a little bit later. LAETITIA, looking at what we learned maybe during the pandemic about how we can work and how the working model can be applied, should we come back completely now also from the look of sustainability, or should we choose more hybrid models which are maybe better for the environment?
So that's a very difficult question, and as a consultant I'm going to say there's not one size that fits all. Yeah, obviously, after the pandemic a lot of companies have chosen different hybrid models. Some people are mandating particular day in the office. Some other company like Accenture, we say we need to make the travel worth the trip for you. So you would only go to the office if you have specific client meeting or really meaningful meeting with your colleagues and things like that. So there's not one size fits all. In Accenture, I lead the data and AI department, and one of the things we're working with at the moment is an algorithm around hybrid working, because when your policies are quite fluid, like Accenture, it's quite difficult to predict how many people are going to be in the office, tune your heating and your air condition and all of that kind of things. And we use some of the past data, some of the weather data, but also we enable facility manager to close a floor or close a part of the building, so we can optimize the consumption of energy for a particular building. It's been very successful for teams in India, where in 4 buildings we reduced by 25% the energy consumption, just by being able to fine-tune much more how we support the hybrid working environment. Yeah, but a lot of things are coming into the picture there. I think, as now the energy prices is going quite high up. Obviously, a lot of the cars are still using petrol. A lot of the common transport are also quite expensive to run. There will be a balance and further tuning of the hybrid working, I think, that happens in some specific country, because it costs to the environment to come to the office, and maybe sometime it may be best to be at home, or sometimes it's not. Just imagine your family node is at home anyway because you have small kid and one of the parents is at home. So you're already consuming energy at home to make sure your home is warm and okay. Then maybe for the person working from home, then it's not no extra, and it is much more costing to actually go to the office. So I think with the energy price going up, we will see further tuning of the hybrid working model to really maximize sustainability. And I think it'll be company per company. Yeah.
I think by this you are opening quite an important topic, and that is how the crisis that we are facing is shaping how we behave as a society. I think we already see, as you said, that with the higher energy prices, there are already more and more movements towards sustainability, because we have to, otherwise it won't be possible. Do you feel it also in your areas? Any of you that want to react to this question, or in your companies, or do you see some other specific examples like LAETITIA just said?
Yes, I have to confirm that actually, especially the pandemics was the great enabler. Because before the pandemics, people could not imagine, not only people but also management, could not imagine that their teams will not be present in person. And it really may create a huge change in the culture and in the way how we work. And the BUP, we really, during the pandemic, rebuilt the building. So today we don't even fit there. So if everybody would like to come, they cannot, because we would not fit into the building. And this actually enabled that we working from home is the first base principle. And what you said, I'm really interesting. I will then contact you, because right now we are not optimizing it per floor, so we can lock it down. But with the energy, that's bringing another another insight in it, because now it's motivating even for the employees and for the companies to do it, because really the impact of the energy change is huge. We are not talking about small money, so it's also now motivating more the customers and the companies to think about it. How are we going to use our energy in most efficient way?
And you have various activities in this, like for example the BYOD, Bring Your Own Device initiative that you are trying to implement in your bank.
It's not with energy consumption, but we are really trying to look at it from multiple angles. Like for example, I have my personal computer and I have my company computer. And same goes with my wife. She has a company computer and also a private laptop. And this is very inefficient, because we have to produce 2 devices to serve 1 person. In this case, actually 4 to serve our family. And it's mainly driven due to our security, that we are really afraid to let any other device into our safe home network. But this is also changing, and now we have more tools and better tools who can analyze the stations, and we can really, and we should try to aim to reduce the number of the computers, that really anybody can bring his own computer. We can somehow motivate our employees to do it. We can even co-finance it. There is a lot of models, and the footprint which you can actually save, but not buying second laptop or third or whatever, is really important. So it's not about energy consumption more, but it's about really environment, because we are using like Dell laptop, but it doesn't matter. But Dell is really good in promoting what is the footprint of the laptop. So on their webpage you can really see how much chemicals, water, CO2 was used to produce the one device, and it's really huge. It's really huge.
Thank you. We have a first question from the audience, and that is, how can we open the conversation on implementing sustainable practices at the organization level? Who should we address this problem to? Who would like to try to answer? Richard.
Maybe I would like to start on one topic, and the first point is to understand what is sustainability. And we spoke it very briefly already about it. It's the abbreviation of ESG. It's the environment, social, and governance topics. And there are like United Nations targets, which are 17 of them. And they are like focusing not just on the carbon footprint, but also on like diversity and hunger prevention and peace, and like 17 topics, and each of those topics has subtopics, right? And I think in order to address sustainability as a topic in a company, I urge like everybody to first understand what is sustainability, and this is what we are trying also to do in Accenture by providing a training which is called sustainability quotient, I think, and this enables all of our employees to go through that, learn it, understand it, and then they can address those topics. So then they can go and see around them and see like, okay, the lights is on, maybe I should switch it off, or maybe I can program a new software which will help our client in some way to I don't know, like measure the diversity ratios in their company, things like that. So first to understand that would be kind of my suggestion.
I was doing some work with one of my team, and I think there's more than 500 organizations that have sustainability target committed in Europe at the moment. And I think, and a number of other organizations have aspirational target. They're not as committed, if you want, to the market. I think all of those organizations somehow need to mobilize to achieve what they promise the market. And as such, a number of them would start having sustainability officer that actually owning this particular exercise. One of the other big role in an organization is the chief operating officer. So chief operating officer is a great place to go for making a quest on sustainability, because sustainability has ultimately also a huge impact on the cost of operation. Ultimately, it should reduce a number of the cost element because we're more sustainable, we're using resources better, and typically that's what our CEOs are accountable for, making sure we make the best out of the investment of the company. So that would be my advice in terms of where to go.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would take the question which is up.
Go for it.
Yeah. So I find it very fascinating. Is there something that software developers can do? Like, how can we... Yeah, so do you see any approaches to sustainable software development where it has been already put in practice? So sustainable software development is super interesting topic. So first of all, it's good to realize that when we develop software, there is the design time or development time and then the run time. And we can do the optimization of both. So very interesting thing about developing software is that for a developer, it's being said that the ratio of a read versus write is like 10:1. So developers spend much more time reading the software than writing the code, actually. And therefore, first of all, making code clean and easy to understand is actually saving lots of time and energy during the software development, which is very interesting, and people don't really think about it. Then there are studies showing that even making the code clean and refactoring can save up until 10% energy consumption when running the code. So really, those practices of refactoring and writing clean code can have impact on the energy consumption of that system. And then there are multiple other things that a software engineer can influence. So one thing, and it has been mentioned during the morning opening, it's not only about how much energy you consume, but do you consume green energy or dirty energy, right? So this is one thing to actually consider. Do I run it on my own server, and is my own server powered from the regular grid, mostly from the traditional sources, or do I deploy my software in the cloud, which is in a more green energy area of the world? So that is a thing that can be considered. Then one important thing when I mentioned that as a software developer, so engineers, what we can contribute to is working with scarce resources and using them more efficiently. That is a huge contributor to sustainable software development is balancing the load over your machines. So really your machine utilization. It is being shown that in the machine, whether you have it utilized for 40% or 80%, the energy consumption is basically the same. It's this very little difference. So thinking about it and balancing your computation during the off-peak hours, for example, pre-computing things and then using them, and then using less machines. These are different things that can be done. So I could go on and on, but I think that there will be other additions to that.
However, yeah, it's... Go on.
It's really important because you said really good points. And what happened to us, because really resources were cheap, the data, it's really easy to get any amount of data you want. So we were not treating it well in the past during the development. Especially we in the banks, we are experts in it because we have primary data center, secondary data center, and then reserve hold standby data center. And everywhere you have a lot of data copied and replicated, and our colleagues could tell you more about it. But really we now are starting to look on it what data do I really need to have in this model that are copied 3 times or 4 times and are really on hot standby and synchronized. And we are now really reconsidering these architectural choices. Something can be only in one data center, something can be on older really disks, so we don't have to use it. Some can be really backed or wrapped. So there is a lot of things what we were not paying attention to because the resources were very cheap. And now when they are becoming actually a bit more expensive, also from energy consumption and everything, it's starting to be interesting, and it also brings the positive impact. And what you said, the CEO or CFO is a really great place to start, because all these activities have positive benefits to environment, but also to the company numbers. So it really goes hand in hand. That's why it's important.
I'm just going to add a little bit on data. I think there's been a bit of craziness about data in the last decade with big data, where people were just putting any data in what people call a data lake, that I call a data swamp, actually. There was the magic promise that some magic tool would give you insight, which is not true. And we created a huge data monolith, and in some company, a lot of data monolith. So I think there's a huge movement now from big data to small data. And, as a lot of companies are moving, from on-premise to cloud, I'm challenging my client, what do we need to bring with us? Because you don't necessarily bring all this Teradata of crap that has been happening over the past 20 years. You don't. Most companies have changed their business model as well during COVID. So, ultimately, is the data 3 years ago are going to give you any insight if you change your models that much? Probably not. Are you going to have enough data to do some cool AI? Maybe not, but then that's a good problem to have. How are you going to use synthetic data or other data to get the insights you need? Not really using some old stuff that's actually need to be left behind. Yeah. So really, I think for all the data practitioner there, big data is a big buzzword, but actually small data, the right data that you understand in context is really, really important. In the same way, data scientist training a model is expensive. Yeah. We don't just do a try. No, you need to make sure you have the right set of data before you actually kind of start training your model, because that's very expensive. And if you've done a few attempts, like let's say 10, and you don't get any better, well, you need to pause and rethink, not try harder. Because it's just not going to work, yeah.
And if you look at the data storage in itself, because dark data storage is quite a big problem in sustainability. So what should companies do? Like one way, what you said was to not store data that is old and they don't need. But if they have something that they need to store, is it good to go for the green cloud solutions, or should they find some other types of solutions?
Yeah, meaning there's many solutions. You mentioned a few, yeah. So it depends what's the likelihood of access you need, or if you need to keep it for regulatory purpose and things like that. But you can use the old tape, for instance, which is, not very consuming. You won't be able to access it easily, but if it's just in case, you need to have it for 7 years, maybe that's perfectly fine.
Thank you, Jaroslav.
Really build up, because what you said is really actually the real case. I can tell you, like we have our DMS, document management storage, where we are installing all the contracts and agreement. And from a legal point of view, we have to keep it for 10 years, really, to have it ready for us. But what was the original old design, that we were keeping everything on this, I would call it expensive arrays, which was replicated multiple times. So what are we doing now? That we are splitting the part which we call active, that really this part of documents and is active, and we really have the customer who is still using the product. And that's one part, approximately 8%, really small. And the rest, the 90% plus, is actually not active documentation, and we can move it out from this infrastructure just to backup. So we can access it anytime, and we just by this design change, we saved really 90% of capacity in DMS. So we are not in this first case tackling the moving to green cloud, etc., because there is a lot of things with much more tangible benefits and simple way how to optimize it, because really in the past we were not thinking about it, because the resources and the disks, they were really cheap. So we were extending, and at least from the cost point of view, it was not a topic, like how we design it.
Maybe there are some more, like if you already have the data and you have to deal with them already, then there are like some best practices how to handle it as a programmer, as a developer. You can, for example, compress the data when you're sending over the network. or then what is really important is even the choice of the right programming language or the database design. And what is interesting is it's different from application to application. So it's not like one size fits all. So like, I don't know, PHP is the best from CO2 perspective. No, it depends on the application, how many users, for how long will they access it, and so on. And we will have quite a nice presentation at 1650, which is a promotion for that, where my colleague Peter Antal will present exactly this, how this is being, like how this can be calculated, and how can you use it for yourself.
Thank you so much. We have many questions from the audience, so I will have to get to it. It's nice to hear all these great ideas, but do you think that our society is ready for being more sustainable in everyday life, like turning off the lights, etc.? It's exactly what I wanted to ask Barbora before, because you were talking about how software developers can be more sustainable, but I think it resembles our daily lives, that to be more sustainable is not easy. You know, we have to go to a different store and we have to bring the packages to buy the goods, so we don't buy prepackaged goods and don't use plastics. And I feel like it's the same. We have to make more efforts to be sustainable. So what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, so it's actually very simple. The thing is that when that, like being more sustainable, becomes the comfortable option, we will opt for it. So like, what can we do by making it the comfortable option, right? Because like humans optimize their comfort in the end. One funny story is that very often the influence is the children. So like when there were discussions like how to make the society quit smoking, it's not really targeting the adults, telling them you should stop smoking. It's much more efficient to target their children, to tell their mom and dad, hey mom and dad, like you should really stop smoking. So, and then for the mom and dad, it's more comfortable to stop smoking, you know, than to deal with that discomfort of your child every day reminding you. So it's just a, I would say, like a very quick glimpse of what can help in there, which is, you know, like target younger generation, of course, and then making it more comfortable for people. So, I mean, like if it's so hard to take your trash to those, you know, like recycle bins, then let's bring the recycle bins closer to people, right? Let's just think about like how to make it easier for people to be sustainable.
I think it can also create kind of a really competitive advantage for some companies. So, for example, let's imagine you go to a market and you want to buy some fruits and cheese and milk and whatever, but you want going into every single product and assess its sustainability. So you just won't do that because you're hungry, you want to buy your food as soon as possible, right? But if you know for a fact that this market sells only sustainable products or products that rank in sustainability over a certain level, then you will gladly choose that market if you are conscious about sustainability over other markets. So you can actually, by providing data on sustainability and measuring the data first and then providing it to the customer, you can actually kind of motivate them. And if it's easy, accessible, as you said, then people will go for it.
LAETITIA?
I was, you made me think about an example. At home, we don't buy Nutella anymore because my 12-year-old daughter has read a lot about palm tree oil, and, you know, I just can't buy it. You know, she would just put it straight in the bin if anybody kind of make the mistake of getting Nutella in the home. So they are very effective messages in our generation. What I wanted to say is there's the comfort thing, which is more like we all should feel responsible, and then there's the regulation, and then the commitments that companies are making. And I think what I'm really happy about is more and more companies, because they acknowledge this is needed to be sustainable for the employee, the attractivity, make commitment. And those companies, you know, have no choice to meet the commitment but to, you know, track the commitment and, you know, implement, you know, initiative to deliver that. So I think we have a little bit of the carrot, which is you want to be a good citizen, but, you know, there's a stick also coming. And what I see in France, I don't know, I was looking at the regulation around sustainability. For instance, there's décret tertiaire that just got voted in France just before summer, which is going to force company, building emission is one of the big offender. of sustainability for the CO2 emission, and companies are going to have to report their consumption and formally to the government. And we were looking at Australia. They've done that for really long with a department called NABERS, and they have like years and years of history of consumption. And what they can do is they can start benchmarking for a city, for particular weather, what is good looking like, and not only you fight against yourself, but you also have benchmarking to say, well, actually, I'm doing better, but that's still so far away from what the top performers are doing. And it does help you figure out a path which is elevated on your action, if you want. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I would maybe just summarize that maybe we are not yet ready, but we are trying to get there. And if we don't want to, the crises are making us. So maybe that's somehow the way we are going. Another question is, one of my friends told me to delete all my unread emails to save energy. Doing so would save more CO2 than planting a tree. Is that true? Is it? Barbora?
I've heard the same. I didn't verify though. But what is I think interesting exercise for each one of us is actually every now and then monitor our CPU usage and finding out, for example, just having 100 tabs open in our browser, which is super unnecessary, is really consuming so much processing time. Really, just observing how your resource utilization or on your machine changes by closing even just those unopened tabs.
God, I have to close all my tabs now.
Yeah, it's actually surprising. It's when I had my older laptop, I did that because when I opened my Zoom, it's just it all was frozen. So I needed to monitor. Okay, so what is the thing? And for those open tabs in the browser, it's just crazy. So just understanding this, it's not that difficult. You just open your task manager and or whatever tool you can utilize in your machine, and just it is a little awareness of what's really costing me the resource utilization.
However, I must say, please don't delete your unread emails. I think you should read them first, so you don't lose anything.
But this saves mental health, actually.
That's true. Thank you. Another question. In your opinion, is the continuous growth as pursued by many companies around the world not at odds with sustainability principles? Big topic.
Yeah, this is a really huge topic, and it has also a relation to the comfort we were talking about. Same as we as people to live sustainably, we want also to live comfortably, but the companies the same way want to kind of grow and be profitable. And growth and innovation is actually one of the 17 targets which I mentioned already defined by UN. So it's definitely not at odds with sustainability. It's actually part of it. So we need to think of sustainability as part of of innovation and growth as part of the sustainability.
I'm going to use an example that I like a lot, which is actually a lot of retailers for clothes started to, sell second-hand clothes and really kind of looking at sustainability from that point of view. So instead of, I think what's wrong into hyper growth is really selling things that people don't really need and really pushing the marketing on people's button and get them to buy something that they don't really need, and tweaking the human mind to want that. But growth can also come from using resources better, like second-hand clothing, or making it easier to recycle. A lot of meaning I just moved to France. A lot of the things I buy, people pick up the old one, and then it goes into a recycling kind of mode, which is much better than having a fridge kind of in a dump somewhere that needs to be treated. They just try to do something with it. So I think growth, yes, but different products, sustainable products, need to be considered too. Yeah.
However, I'm afraid that there is some part of growth that will have to stop for a while if the companies will transfer to sustainability, because as you mentioned, fashion, like these huge fashion shops, when they stop making so much clothes, they will make less money otherwise, or they have to be more expensive. So I think there is kind of the relationship between growth and sustainability, no?
Well, if there's different way of making profit. Profit is obviously your revenue minus your cost. If your cost is less because you're recycling, then you can still maybe make the same amount of profit. It would be lower revenue, yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean less profitable.
So we need to reshape the way we look at it in a way. I think it's also what Richard said, that the companies just need to look at it differently, right?
It's kind of having a balance between all those kind of like areas, not just the environment, but also profit and also comfort of the people, and you have to find the right balance. So like really find the right products which give you which produce the least waste and least CO2 footprint, but still give you the profit or even higher profit because they are sustainable and more people want them. So you actually can surpass your competition, right?
And not slide into greenwashing, for example. Exactly. Barbara?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and that is about, it is also innovation that very often can get off the bounds when it comes to sustainability, like the blockchain, for example. Like blockchain has a huge problem in sustainability if we use the proof of work to confirm transactions. And obviously now we are trying to move away from proof of work towards proof of stake or other solutions to confirm transactions. But until we do so, which we haven't, right? Blockchain is still the proof of work. It's just every transaction causes enormous amounts of energy, enormous amounts, and much of it is the dirty energy. So I think that this awareness, before we let the technology to really spread, that we hold it a bit until we know, its sustainability trace is ready for widespread use, is quite important.
Thank you. Jaroslav?
I just wanted to add that we were really exhausting and drilling our resources for so many generations, even in our mankind, that today is not such a big deal to start with ESG topics and really be sustainable. And I really like the quote, we should stop harvesting the earth and start harvesting our waste, because really it's much cheaper to get all those resources what we need for batteries, lithium, etc., from the waste what we already produced in the centuries, what we already did. We don't have to dig the ground, we can get it from the waste what we have. And I really believe that if you start to work on sustainable targets and you really want to achieve whatever you are building in a sustainable way, it's bringing you really the competitive advantage, because you mentioned kids many times, but this generation is different. It's really different in the way of thinking, and the customer is the ultimate owner of how will it look like. I will not persuade my father to change his habits, but my kids are different, and if they start to purchase goods and products which are really sustainable, it will in a time create an impact. I don't know how long it will be, but it will happen, and it's happening, and I see it more as an opportunity, because if the resources will become more scarce, as you just now mentioned, it will be more and more examples. Like we in Slovakia, we have Duslošala. I don't know, it's very resource-consuming company to create all the chemical instances, and they closed down because of the high energy prices, and they introduced previous week that now they are building the biggest winter power plant and also the sun renewable energy field to really get the renewable energy for their energy-intense industry. So it's really this high cost of the energies are the driver for innovations. And if we are able to fund it and support it, even via the EU schemas or the banks who can finance this type of projects, we can on the end up as a winners here in Europe, because we will still have the industry, but it will be based on clean energy. And this is a really good example here in Slovakia, Duslo, and I hope that it will work for them.
Guys, I think I might be even more optimistic after this debate. You have so much good energy about this topic that I think it can help a lot. What do you think would be the best approach towards sustainability for small and medium businesses which have very limited resources?
Anybody? I can be just like real quick and then like pass the mic.
You can.
Because I think the goal is to make this the efficient way, right? Also, I mean financially, because like energy is becoming electricity, right? Very expensive. So actually being more energy efficient is something that is gradually becoming the choice number one, also from the like resource of financial perspective, like very easily put. And then I would say, okay, so for example, what a university is doing, but I think that like any organization can think about it similarly, is we are buying lots of stuff. So when buying, it's actually good to think, okay, so do I prioritize local producers, right? Like, do I prioritize local or things that do not need to be transported over the whole world? And hopefully this should become cheaper way to do it in the future. But that's I would say a commitment of the EU, etc., to make like local production the more beneficial from the financial perspective. Like, it shouldn't be those small businesses that need to pay more to buy locally.
Yeah, because to make the topic even huger or more big, it's not even only about small businesses, but also people who are lower on the economic scale and for whom it is much harder to be sustainable and to think about these things, because they maybe have a budget just to buy some food, and they are not thinking about whether there is plastic, whether it's sustainable, whether it's energy efficient or anything else. They don't have the finances for that. So this is something that the government level has to consider.
But also the question is whether they need finances to really rethink the business approach, because they can look at it, even the mid-sized companies, as an opportunity. Because right now, if I should start a company, I should start a company which is building solar plants, for example, because there is such a huge demand to this industry that maybe you can change your field of business or really look at it differently, even without investment. And lucky for also these companies, there is already today a lot of SHIMAs who can support them the transition, and there will be even more from the also EU to really support this transition and change.
Thank you. Richard?
The question is actually whether small businesses or any business can actually afford not being sustainable. Because it creates so many opportunities which I believe especially small businesses cannot afford to pass, because other businesses will tackle them, so the competition is kind of strong and they can kind of perish just as a company. So that's the first part. So every even small business should be thinking about how to become sustainable, lower their cost in the way, but also create a competitive advantage over other businesses. And as for the let's say people which are worse economically and cannot afford, this is exactly one of the targets again of the ESG target, to fight poverty, for example. You cannot give a government decree and say everybody should switch to electric cars, because many people will ultimately not be able to afford that, right? And so you have to, and that's when I was talking about the balance. You can implement some measures, but you have to also think about the other targets and keep it in balance, so all the measures are kind of like working together.
Yeah, that includes everything. Even when we talked about fashion, if all these huge fashion chains would just go away from the countries where they produce and they destroy the environment, but the people would lose their jobs, they wouldn't have income and so on. So we always have to think about that as well. Should there be some incentives from our governments to companies, e.g. lower tax?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you. That was easy. What can we do to increase awareness on social and governance aspects of sustainability? It seems it is often shrunken to the environment area. Yeah, we are talking more about environment today, but if you have any looks on that?
We are actually now participating in several awards, like creating awareness inside is one thing, but there are also in Slovak area the awards who are awarding the architecture who is sustainable, also the project who are helping in the environment. So we are trying to be active then, and we will be supporting this because it's important really also to give support to the organizations who are volunteering and doing the job in communication and teaching everybody. And also important part is social inclusion, which is also a very topic.
Exactly. Like at Accenture, we have very, very strong movement or activities in terms of inclusion and diversity. Also, Accenture won several awards in that area, and we do. And I have to say, it's not just because we think it's nice. Of course, it is, but it's also a really strong business case behind it, because we want the best employees to have. We want the best people to come to Accenture and say we want to work for you. And we achieve that by being really inclusive, so we actually just compete on the employers market, right?
Thank you, Laetitia.
I was privileged to be asked to do the opening of the United Nations Hackathon for ESG number 3, which is health, and one of the thing, you know, when I was working on the opening, one of the things that became evident to me is, you know, there's a lot of transformation needed, and we can all take our part. I'm going to take the example of hospital. You know, hospitals have been created very often like 60, 70 years ago in cities. They are located in a particular place, yeah? Some people may be quite far from those hospitals. And one of the use cases coming from the United Nations Hackathon is some COVID detection could be done on devices remotely, you know, using some you know, like more distributed digital enablement. And we have a project at the moment running in Italy on, you know, positioning the ambulance in the right place in the city so we can be really close to people that have heart attack, because the physical infrastructure and implementation of hospital is actually a bad luck for some people that are living far away. So I think there's a lot of innovation that can come as well, you know, to think about sustainability more broadly. And it's really, you know, the people from the uni and all of that, I really need to think about those challenges and not leave them on the side because it's been like that for 70 years, but really challenge the model. We have a lot of tools that are very efficient now to reinvent. I believe we're in the 4th industrial revolution. We need to reinvent a fairer society. And that means, you know, a diverse, inclusive, more suited to our current need, and all of those things need to be kind of turned upside down, yeah? And that's why we need all those students and energy from the new generation to help us, yeah?
Thank you. But you just moved the energy requirement on your employees to deal with it. Company saves money, energy, but now the employees now pay for energy needed to work. I think this is a question coming back to the beginning of our discussion where we were talking about working from home.
This is very valid. Like we are, for example, in VOB, we realize this fact, and for employees who are working majority of the time from home, we are compensating it. Like per each day they work from home, they will get the compensation. I'm not sure it's like €1.50, but if we, for example, work whole month from home, so it's 30 euros or etc. We can change it in the future, but it can cover your extra energy cost for sure.
And we have the same in Accenture. So depending on how many days you work from home, actually at the end of the month you get a little help for the electricity bill. Yeah.
Maybe on that as well, one thought is that it's different from employee to employee, because some employees are living just 5 or 10 minutes from the office. Some employees are living together with a family, like you mentioned, for example, that even though you go to the office, you still have somebody, so the apartment or the house needs to be heated and so on. So it's different. And there comes the technology, so first of all, you can collect all this data, so how far the people are from the office, maybe even if they are willing to volunteer this information, how many people are living in the house. And you can do smart things, maybe use some AI or something to optimize this. And maybe the employee can get a suggestion, if you want to save something, you can go to the office. Or maybe you should not come to the office this week because your commute is 20 minutes by a car. So it's maybe more optimized if you stay at home, right? So it's not one size fits all, but it's actually using the technology, using the data, being smart about it, and doing the right thing. And it will benefit not just the company, the cost, but also the environment, but also the cost of, or the money of the employees.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How can we as citizens hold our government or municipalities responsible in the sustainability area? Corporates seem to be more mature in this area. Barbora.
First of all, I'm from a university. It's also like a public sector, right? And yet there is a big move. You know, there is really like a big move. The university representatives are trying to be in touch with the rest of Europe. You know, like visiting each other institution to learn from the best practices, etc. Because there is the pressure from the outside. So I would say the same way we need to create the pressure from the outside. Now, we have a very strong card, which is election, right? So, I mean, let's just use that card. It is a way. So, first of all, communicating clearly what influences your election, your voting decision. You know, like, I think we need to be more vocal if we want the politicians to take it seriously. I think they need to understand that this is what influences our voting decision. Sometimes we are too quiet about that. And of course, very often the political parties are optimizing for a bigger support. So I think we need to be more vocal to make it clear that this is what influences the decision.
Thank you. Another question, thinking about this event, what was our action to reduce our CO2 footprint? As we have a discussion about sustainability, how can we improve such events? Yeah, we are coming back from the pandemic. We are meeting together again, not only through our computers. So I don't know if you can speak for that, for Accenture. How was the action to reduce the CO2 footprint?
I was not part of the event organization, but I can tell you I'm very impressed by our Accenture event organization team. So starting from, you know, cars waiting for us at the airport where we would carpool, back into the hotel. We all had the same hotel. We all had everything organized so we could do things in group rather than, you know, all have our separate ways of doing stuff. I think it's already, you know, co-sharing of transport is a huge thing. And you know, so those are the bits I've seen, but I'm sure there's many more, yeah.
Thank you, Barbora.
I wanted to share like how the academic sector is now dealing with the question, because the research organizations we are having research conferences all around the world, and it's been really large. So what is actually happening now, and it's really like since the pandemic started, we started coordinating much more than we did before. So it's really that conferences on similar topics are merging together, so that, for example, like this year, like my community, software architecture community, had a conference that was collocated with another conference, so that it's one conference and those people do not need to travel to two places, right, to attend the two conferences, and they come to one place. The second thing was that we actually split those conferences to like 1 week virtual, 1 week in person. Some people attend only the virtual, some people attend only the in person, some people attend both. But the thing is that then the in-person part is like 1/3 of the original size of the conference, and yet they do not really cannibalize each other because it's two separate events. So like one is really done to focus on like it's pure virtual, the second is pure in person. So it's not hybrid in terms of, you know, like trying to combine and jungle, you know, those two things and then like both balls falling down. So we are really thinking about that like in that way. And there is a lot of debate on how to be more efficient. Another example, for example, so that conference that I was now attending, so the software architecture conference. So we are really trying to be working in collaboration with the carbon, this kind of like carbon emission payback, that you buy those carbon offsets per person who is traveling to the conference, and you pay back. And there are companies. There was this company for my conference that was actually doing that their business is that they actually get a deal at a hotel for a reduced price and use that price reduction to buy those carbon offsets for all the participants who come to the conference. And they really, for everybody traveling to the conference, they ask which location you are traveling from so that we compute your carbon offset correctly. Like if you are traveling bigger difference, so that we pay more for you. So these things are really, like happening, and people are really serious about that.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions. Are our drinking cups sustainable? Hee. What do you think, guys? The cups for the coffee that maybe you could use.
There is a little sign of recycling sign. I saw it, and
so it should be okay.
I hope.
Thank you for the question.
And I just wanted to say that when I was getting a coffee, there was a lady and saying, "Could you give a coffee to my used cup?" And the lady was, "Sure, yeah." So this is also possible.
That's good. You can also bring a keep cup.
No, but it's also, yes, that I wanted to say, it's your personal responsibility how you treat those cups. I got one cup and I was carrying it with me and I got it refilled and it was not a problem. So one thing is, yes, maybe they could be more ecological, but it's also the way how you approach it. So if you approach it in the way that is ecological, really we should focus also on ourselves. How can we change it? Because sometimes, yes, anybody can make a mistake and not put the recyclable cups, but you can still act it like it's recyclable.
Thank you. The last question is very technological. A lot of times what uses a lot of my CPU usage are security apps that are pre-installed on my notebook. Could this be one area to improve sustainability in?
Yes, I'm always uninstalling them as soon as I got a new laptop. So it's totally not okay and they should not install it there. I agree with you.
Thank you. And I have one last question because there is an area that we didn't cover at all, and it is AI. And I would really like, we have LAETITIA here, so I have to ask. Actually, development of AI is quite difficult for the environment and for sustainability. For example, training a single artificial intelligence model can emit as much CO2 as 5 relatively ordinary cars through their lifetimes. At least that's what I found in a report. Are these negative impacts being taken into account, and can AI in the future compensate for them and help us be more sustainable? How do you see this?
Yeah, so I guess AI, is a new way to do a number of things. Yeah, and like the way when we were doing software engineering, it was very deterministic. You have if, then that, then you do this. Well, in AI, you have a mathematical model which is looking for pattern in data set and then give you probabilistic kind of outcomes. So AI, by definition, because you're moving from a deterministic model to a probabilistic model, you're creating all the shade of gray in between the 0 and 1. Yeah. So it is. I think the first question is which problem are you trying to solve? Yeah, and any data scientist that's not solving a problem which is defined, ultimately need to be thinking again and again about that. We shouldn't really try, there's some exploration done in thesis and in research and all of that kind of things, but typically they're quite framed up in a particular area and it's to solve a problem. We shouldn't really experiment outside of problem solving is the first thing, because it's very complex. Yeah. Then I think when you go into the process of doing your AI, you need to make sure you have the right data, the right clean data. And I see far too often people going and training an AI algorithm to see if it's going to work, using not necessarily very sound data or clean data, or spend enough time to kind of create the right environment for success. So I think for me is really try to solve something is the first step. Try to make sure you have the right variable in your environment. All of those things are going to be needed. We do need to invent the next generation of intelligence and innovation, but don't use AI for the sake of using AI. If normal software engineering works, then just go that way. Don't try new things without doing your research first, on making sure everything is clean. And then if you see that you are not successful after a few attempts, you need to pause and ask for help and support and other people to help you out, because obstination in that kind of space is costing a lot for the environment and very rarely bear result. Yeah.
So it's really like mindfulness in the process of development.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. We have spent our time, but it was very pleasant to talk to you. I love how you were able to connect all of the perspectives on this topic. Thank you to our audience who managed to stay with us for the whole discussion. And I wish you a pleasant rest of the day and other interesting talks. We had one added here, so be sure to go there and listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.